Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Well, Anita, it's the 4th of July.
Yes, it is.
And it used to be Canada Day a couple days ago.
Yeah, so 4th of July to our U.S. friends and Canada Day to our Canadian friends. And there's got to be something going on in the other parts of the world, so.
Well, what are you going to do on this day of 4th?
The 4th of July is probably the second biggest holiday for my family besides Christmas. My family, not Jason's family. Because my grandma used to be the chairman of the city parade. So we have to go to the parade. So it's kind of a big deal. So that's what we'll do. We're not doing all of the things that we have in the past. I didn't let my kids stay up to watch the fireworks last night. And I'm so glad I didn't. Because they were late because it was windy. So they didn't start till like 10:30. Of course, half of them were still up and still went outside to listen to them, but whatever.
I hate the 4th of July. I hate July. It's too hot.
It
and
is.
I hate it because there's lots of gatherings of sweaty people and fireworks that cause fires and make animals scared and run away.
Are your dogs scared of fireworks?
No, because I have done exposure therapy with them.
Oh.
Whatever
okay.
the equivalent is of that for dogs. Yeah, where you desensitize them. So they're like,
You just bang really loud things around them and they get used to it. Oh, interesting. I know it's a stressful time for pet owners to have all that loud concussing noises.
yeah, you have distressing sounds or sounds that might cause them to be scared, like blasts or fireworks or car horns or train tracks, and you turn it up loud. And then when they hear those sounds, you give them tons of treats raining down from the heavens.
So it's like potty training.
Is
Sort
it?
of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. So
that's
wait,
interesting.
why were there fireworks Saturday and then there's going to be fireworks Monday? What? That's so dumb. How about no
it's
fireworks
always like
ever?
that. It's like well,
There's
that's
going
a
to be
whole
them
different-
on Sunday too. I bet they're going to be. Obviously,
know.
we're recording this Sunday, so it's not actually the 4th.
Yeah.
I just hate fireworks so bad. When I was 3, I got a sparkler caught in between my foot and my
Oh,
flip
no.
flop. Yeah.
Okay, this is so funny because my dad is the king of safety. All right. He always wore his steel-toed boots, right? You were not allowed to wear flip-flops in his presence because those were just a bad idea and dangerous. Something could get dropped on your foot. Mm-hmm. He used to get mad at us when we would cook bacon without long sleeves on because that was dangerous.
Whoa.
But on the 4th of July, he would pull out a blowtorch and give us sparklers. And I'm like, sparklers are so dangerous. And he wouldn't light them with just like, it would be like blazing. And then we would run around with the hot pokers. Yeah, we don't do that at our house.
I'm really looking forward to the whole month of July just being over.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Mel. It's not related to the 4th of July.
Does it have to do with my nose?
No, but I do want to hear about that also. Okay. What did you do to your nose, Mel?
I got a nose piercing yesterday, and I was texting you and our friend Sarah, and you were taking a nap, so you couldn't help me decide whether I needed sparkly or this really cute flat round one that I love. And Sarah was like, you should go for the sparkly. And then I was like, oh yeah, then I can find my sparkle. And I thought of our friend Amy Hartman Martell, who's also my roller skating muse, and now I guess my sparkly jewelry nose ring muse. And I told Sarah that. She's like, exactly, get it. So I have a sparkly stud in my nose. It did not hurt. It still does not hurt. I'm confused. But I think it looks cute.
She sent me, Mel sent me the video of it happening. And they just like stabbed that thing right through. I don't know how it doesn't hurt, but
then it's over and it's like, oh,
miracle of modern technology. No,
needles?
Because that was just a big needle. Yeah. Well, Mel, I'm excited for you to have a little bit more, sparkle to your personality because that's definitely what you were missing out on. You definitely didn't have enough excitement to your visage.
And Wednesday, I'm getting a new tattoo.
Oh, don't tell your mom.
Now she's going to know I'm over it.
Oh, okay. Well, that will be fun too, Mel.
Well, she's out of town right now, so she's going to come back to probably be disappointed in me. But you know what? It's what's inside that counts. Plus, I look so cute now.
Okay. Now, can I ask you my question?
Okay.
Do you ever wonder, or are you, like, not on this same plane? When you leave a group of people or you approach a group of people, what they say about you?
Oh. I rarely think that way. Probably because I'm in my own world 100% of the time.
So let me give you, like, why I think about this so much more now that I'm a widow. I'll give you a for instance. So I share backyards with my neighbor. We don't have a fence between us. And I came home the other day and they had some guests and they were all standing in the backyard talking. And we came home and I waved at them and my kids went out and were kind of playing with them. And I thought to myself, I wonder what they say to those friends who don't know me. Oh, yeah, that's our neighbor, Anita. Is the first thing they say, oh, her husband died? Or is that just in my own head that people, like, that's got to be the first thing that they say in hushed tones? Like, oh, yeah, that's Anita. Her husband died. She has 4 kids.
I feel like the first thing that she would say, or that your neighbors would say would be, there are 4 kids right there, and Anita, and their dad died. I feel like it would be like second or third, but also I don't know.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because, like, when I approach a group of people and there's one person who knows me and then the rest of them maybe don't, I think to myself, are they talking, like as I walk away, are they talking about right now how Jason died? Like, are they giving them the lowdown, the scoop on why I'm a tragic figure? And then how do I feel about that?
Well, how do you feel about that?
Like, part of me is happy that people know. Happy is the wrong word, but that I don't have to be the one to share that news with them. And also, part of me is also happy, not happy, that it gives me some cover for if my kids are being terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, tell them so that, like, we can get away with anything. And they'll just be like, oh, poor Anita, her husband died.
Yeah. I think I very rarely think this way, but I know sometimes there have been situations where I know that I clearly was probably talking a lot and being like la 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 la, or saying not inappropriate things, but just kind of saying blunt things. Mm-hmm. And when I would get in those moods, if it wasn't brought up at the conversation that Scott had died, I think that I had reflected back on being like, oh wow, they probably think I'm so weird. I hope somebody there tells them why I'm so kind of on a roll there, you know?
Yeah, I just think about it like, I don't know, in my mind it's like an old Southern community, you know, where the gossip is always, you know, bless her heart. She walks away. Her husband died. So I wondered if you thought about that.
Well, I just assume that people talk about that because remember when we were building the ramp and those people came up to us and gave us treats for my mom. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm the basement troll of the house. And then when you had your widow wife shirt on, and then I could tell they kind of didn't know that we were widows. So I brought it up, and they were totally shocked.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, mad. Oh. I'm like, why don't you know? Why don't you know that there's a reason I'm a basement troll and that we have shirts that say I'm a widow on it?
Yeah.
So I don't know what to think about any of it.
I feel like in general, we think people think more about us than they do. You know, it's not like... But I also wonder when I've been in proximity, if that's the first thing that people say to other people by way of explaining or introducing or whatever me. And never when I'm present, always when I've left the situation.
Here's a question. Do you feel like it's a problem?
No.
Cool.
I don't. I just was curious because I noticed myself wondering what they were talking about as I was walking away. And I've noticed that like 4 or 5 times where I've been like, I wonder if right now they're telling them like my story.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. I've worked a lot for years on being like, whatever others think is none of my business. So I think that's kind of why I don't even think about it. But sometimes I do.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're saying, like, cool things like, she's so cool, she owns a unicycle, but I don't think that's what they're saying.
Oh, man. How else has your week gone, Anita? I know that yesterday you kind of had a tragedy with your running situation and had to get rescued.
It was so hot. And my daughter has to be to work at 7, which means we have to leave at, like, 6:40, which is a really tricky time because usually I'll go running at 6 a.m., That's like when it's not too hot, but that doesn't give me enough time. So then I'm like, okay, I would either have to wake up like way early, or I can go after I drop her off. So I dropped her off and I went and it was already like 140 degrees and I was just sweating so much. And then I ran out of water and I was like, this sucks. So I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, can you come get me? I used to do that to Jason every once in a while. Once I fell in a river in November. I was like, I'm like, Jason, you need to come get me right now. I'm in the canyon. I fell in the creek.
Oh, that's cold.
It was cold. And my phone survived. That was a miracle.
Good.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my yesterday. I haven't had anything exciting like nose piercings or tattoo planning, but do you know what is exciting, Mel?
Yeah, because I have another exciting thing, but go on.
Our store is back open.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we have remodeled it. We've taken it to a different service. We were just having some problems with our suppliers. So it's new and improved. You can find the links on our website or in the app. It's shop.widowwedonow.com. And there's merchandise that's podcast specific, but there's also just grief and widow and widower and parent loss shirts and fun stuff like that. And we call it the Snarky Grief Shop because, you know, we're not boring about our grief. So go check it out. And if you have any of our products, if you post them on social media and tag Snarky Grief, that would be amazing.
And tag us at What Do We Do Now also.
Yeah.
You know what?
No.
Oh, I forgot. Crap.
Shoot.
Oh, the other thing is, y'all, if you love our Snarky Grief stuff, but you do not want to wear it in public, they make great night t-shirts. I'm kind of a lot for people to deal with in a conservative community where they have blue hair and now I have a nose ring. Shocker. So I normally don't wear the kind of more bold shirts out in public. So If you want one, you don't have to wear it outside. And if you do, then do.
And we have some that are a little less in your face. So, there's options.
I like the Widow Wives Club one. I think it's so cute. I love the logo.
Yeah.
Anita, I actually have had a more exciting week than we've already discussed.
Why?
I acquired a kitten.
Oh, yes. He's a cutie pie.
Yep. My mom and I rescued him. Well, she's on a vacation, but I sent her a picture because my friend was fostering. And I said, Mom, do you need a kitten? Do you want this kitten? And then she wrote back, do you want a kitten? And I said, yes. And she said, okay. And I went and got it. And Anita, I left my house and I did a recording session one day this week, all day.
You've been out of your house a lot.
Yeah. It's been a hard week for me, I got to admit. Lots of things have been happening that are hard for me. But I am focusing today on the positive, like my nose ring tattoo and my kitten, which I have named Leo.
There's not much that a little kitten can't make you feel better about. They're just so cute.
I know. And they're so
and playful.
And I love dogs. You guys know I am dog lady central. I have 3. But man, kittens are so easy and cats are so easy. They are wonderful. I
had a cat
cats.
when I was little, and he was a kitten, and he drove me crazy.
Yeah, they're kind of bitey, scratchy for a minute.
Yes, that's exactly. You nailed it.
Yep.
Well, welcome to the family, Leo the kitten. We hope your sojourn here on this earth is one of many, I was going to say mice, but you probably don't want that. Many treats and naps.
Yeah, and cuddles, and he swims. He fell in the bathtub and he swam. And he didn't care. I have not heard him meow yet because he's so chill. He just is like, whatevs. I'm here. I'm here living my life. Yeah. Well, did you know that this coming Saturday is the Zoom Hangout weekend, Anita?
No, I had forgotten, and I'll probably forgot on Saturday too. So, but I'll come.
Okay.
I'll get there.
Yeah, this weekend, July 9th, Saturday. It's the second Saturday of the month, which means it's Zoom hang time. Our Zoom hangs are at 12 Mountain Time and 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So you can find those links in the app and in the events tab in Facebook in the Widow Wives Club.
If you're wondering where to find that information, it's in the Widow Wives Club. Come join us in the Widow Wives Club. It's our private Facebook community. We're growing. We have so many wonderful people in there. Just make sure that you give us all of the stuff that we ask for. I know it's a lot. It might bring up feelings that we ask you for an obituary, but it's for a really good reason, and that is that we feel such responsibility to not gather a group of vulnerable people and then let a scammer in. So, I mean, that's like my worst fear, is being an agent to somebody getting taken advantage of.
Yes, and there are so many new ways that scammers are scamming, so we're trying to stay on top of that and really look out for all of us who are in our vulnerable population.
Yes. All right. If you want to keep the podcast going, Mel, should they check out Patreon?
They should. If you would like to join our Patreon, it helps to support the podcast. And if you join at the Widow Bestie level and up, which is $10 a month, you get a shout out in episode and ad-free episodes. Levels actually start at $5, which is basic support for the podcast, $10, and $20 if you would like to be a widow wife, where you get behind the scenes stuff, and then $40 for the dead husband with an exclusive t-shirt and all of the aforementioned things. So we are going to do our shout out right now for our wonderful and lovely patrons. And everybody, if you're not a patron, please throw up some good thoughts of thanks to these people who contribute so generously to us so that we can keep the podcast going, so that you can listen for free. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with our secret dead husbands. And to them, we say, over hill, over dale, as we hit the widow trail, as the caissons go rolling along. That's because it's the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
That's like the Marines song, I think.
Okay.
Don't get mad if I'm wrong. It's something like that.
Next, we have Constance Dahlbeck,
David Kelly,
Don Satterwhite,
Gail Bell,
Ivan the Meisner, happy birthday,
Cat,
Krista Waite,
Maya Glasser,
Sam Finlayson,
Amber Vela,
Amy Hartman Martell,
Amy Neal,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Hahn,
yes, Barbara Schneeberger,
Brandy Younger,
Brittany Pedro,
Chris Steffen,
Christina Shiflett,
Cindy Wilkerson,
Danielle Catterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brazo,
Jean Marie Massey,
Jenny Taylor,
Jennifer Beal,
Jennifer Brown,
Jenny Wang,
Carol Schultz,
Kelly Ford,
Kirsten Stromberg Clausen,
Judy Malkin,
Laura Aguirre Penner,
Lauren Old,
Luke Clausen,
Marie Hoffman,
M.K. Anderson,
Patricia Wiest,
Rachel Barbosa,
Sarah Morris,
yay, Sparkly, Sunshine Haven,
Sylvia, the World Traveler Shore.
She doesn't even know what she's coming back to, and she hasn't been listening to the podcast since she's been a new widow, so she doesn't even know. Taylor Snyder,
Karen Cornejo,
Vicky Spit,
Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato,
Christine Anderson,
Cindy Raynaud,
Connie Remich,
Dawn Barber,
Debbie Fells,
Deborah Westwood,
Diana Becker,
Emily Toledo,
Eric Vandermeulen,
Aaron Posick,
Gabe Lozano,
Gia Benoit,
Gina Haas,
Ian Sini,
Ileana Bell Ruiz,
Jackie Coyle,
my mom who rescued me from the Too Hot run,
a Patreon who does not want to be named,
Jennifer Davis,
Jenny Armstrong,
Jenny Barrow,
Jocelyn Milo,
Julie Stevenson,
Karina Jacobo,
Kathy Murray,
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara,
Kevin Ferry,
Chris Morgan,
Laura Bradbury,
Laura Keeley,
yes, Lindsay Konopka,
Lori Farrington,
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan,
Megan Montague,
Melissa Bowers,
Melissa Hancock,
Missy Schubert,
Peter Rukavina,
Becky Ziba,
Robin Flam,
Sarah Kennedy,
Stacy Saywert,
Tammy Terravest,
Tara Wallace,
Val Packer,
and the Rockets Red Glare Wendy.
Thank you so much to everybody who supports us on Patreon. We could not do it without you. Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor.
If you would like to support the podcast but do not want to join Patreon, please consider buying us tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And if you don't want to or can't do either of those things, then give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps people to find the podcast when they need to find it.
Yes.
Oh, Mel, I'm so excited about today's episode.
You guys, you'll love it. It's helpful.
It's going to be so great. And I've used some of his little tidbits already in my life, so.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah. Yes, let's get to it. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We are two red, white, and blue widows.
I'm only a blue.
We're just trying to figure out widow.
We
do.
Now.
Okay, Mel, are you ready for this?
Okay, I'm so excited for this because we've talked about it before, but we have no answers.
Yeah, and we're trying to find the only person on the earth who might have answers. And also, I don't know if you know this, Mel, but one of our listeners actually put in a request for us to talk to this person. So
really?
Yes. Did you know that you were that highly sought after?
Me? No.
Why don't we tell everyone who he is and then everyone will know?
Okay. Today, our guest is Dr. Joshua Black. Hello and welcome.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me. It's amazing that one of your listeners knows about the work I've been doing. It's always great when you hear that, because I don't know who that person is, and you just do your work, and it's amazing who finds you, who looks you up, and who talks. And that's really, beyond my control, but all you can do is sort of have a passion for what you do, and just raising awareness for this topic is one of mine. So I'm just glad people around the world are, finding the topic on their own.
So tell us what that topic is and what you do.
Well, you've already talked about it a bit on your show, but my specialty is basically researching these dreams people have in their grief journey. So a lot of times it's in the beginning of loss, and I sort of call those dreams grief dreams. And they sort of happen in a couple different forms. And you guys, I think, talked about more of the deceased as a part of the imagery, which is what a lot of people love to talk about, because that gives the most comfort, but also it can be the most horrifying for them in many ways. But there's also these other dreams that basically more metaphoric in the sense of what's going on in the imagery, and it relates to their waking life grief. So this could be like walking or running by a mountain and then the mountain collapsing on you, and just really reflective of the heaviness of waking life and what you're dealing with, and probably struggling to sort of breathe and move forward and stuff. And then you have these dreams where the deceased isn't a part of the imagery, but there's people in the image that either mention them. So it could be like an angel, or it could be other characters in the dream that sort of give their condolences to the death. Other times it could be visiting memorial sites or the hospital, maybe where they died at, something that sort of represents them more. And then, as I said, the last one, where most of my research is when the deceased is actually present. So a lot of those questions I hopefully can answer for you guys today.
Oh, I have had a lot of those with my husband that died. My dad just died a few months ago, and I haven't had him so much in my dreams. But man, I had so many dreams where my husband, and he died suddenly. I don't know if that matters, like the way that they died. But I would always have these dreams that he was in there, but he wouldn't look at me and he wouldn't talk to me, and he was mad at me all the time. And so the dream was that I was like trying to get his attention, and he was just like not available at all, or he was missing and I couldn't find him. And so that was really stressful, because it was like I woke up and I had to relive some sorts of trauma, or I had dreams where he died again and I had to rebury him and do the funeral and everything. So I would say that happened between maybe like the first few weeks after his death and all the way up to like 6 months. Some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about myself.
Well, what can you tell me? There's a lot to say on that topic, because I will say those themes are very common with sort of after partner loss, but also in other types of loss, especially losses that are traumatic, where you're trying to find them and you can't, or you're searching for them, or you see them and you can't get to them, kind of thing. It's definitely reflective of that in many ways. And then, what we need to understand, I think, about dreams to really understand maybe what is going through your mind or what you're trying to process, is to understand just dreams in general. And so dreams, for the most part, represent our waking life. And so when we're happy and joyful, we'll tend to have more positive dreams, dream images. And then when we're, sad or grieving or just negative in nature or angry, we'll have more negative emotions in our dreams and settings and stuff like that. And so after trauma, what research has found is you actually have more negative dreams consistently. And so after a death, you would think you'd have more negative dreams. And so that's basically what you're having. And so your mind is trying to work through some of these emotions that you are trying to process. It's a difficult journey to be on, especially, as I said, losing a partner or spouse. That's something I haven't had to, and hopefully I don't ever have to have that. But from what I hear, the challenges is enormous, especially if you have kids or finances and like you're living together, your identity, how you see yourself, like it's all a part of that. And then how do you move forward? It's just a lot. So anyways, all of that goes into the images. So, you got to think, if you're living together or you're with that person for a long time, we have this understanding that they're going to be there every day. Like, it's not something that we really think about. And so after the loss, it's really hard for the mind to really put together, the person's actually dead. And then with that, what comes out of that? Is it anger? Probably. I would be angry. Like even if they didn't have a choice, I would still be angry. It doesn't feel right. And you're trying to digest all of that. Trying to digest sort of all the changes in your life. And so it comes in these weird forms and weird images. And so like what were some of the one was that you're trying to find them. What was the other ones that you had?
We would be somewhere doing something normal and he would be there, but he wouldn't look at me. Or I would try to get him to talk to me and he wouldn't even look at me still. Like I couldn't get his attention. One dream I finally got him to like acknowledge me by turning his head, but he still didn't look at me. So it was like just like ignoring me.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it could represent different things, and it's just really based on where someone is. So, some people who've had those images, and I talked to, one of the things is they're sometimes looking for signs or confirmation, right? Like that the person's there, and sometimes if you're not getting in waking life, that could be an image that really sort of showcases that struggle, the person wanting the person to acknowledge that they've crossed over kind of thing. I'm guessing, I don't know if you're religious or not, or spiritual, but that could be something that the mind is trying to digest is like, where are you? Like, I want some acknowledgement that you're okay, or that you're still here, that you still love me, that I'm going to be okay, like just something, right? And I think, that in itself just showcases the difficulty of that. But also it's, I always sort of talk to people is, what would you say or what would you do if he did turn around? And like, what are you longing for? And I think it's just a continuation of what the dream is trying to, I think, unravel in a way. And I kind of sort of see dreams as, especially these negative dreams, they can be like our best friend, where they're trying to provide us and help us in ways that sometimes are very discomforting. Like when a friend tells you a truth about something that doesn't feel good, but it's right. And these dreams can be the very similar in that way. It's really trying to help us out and try to maybe sometimes just get our attention on what we're actually thinking, and to maybe hopefully talk to someone about whatever those issues are if you're already not. And one of the theories too, when it comes to why sometimes we dream about the deceased dying again, is sometimes that we're trying to avoid the loss. And that can be a way for the mind to try to process the reality of what happened. And so there's different sort of reasons for that. So that'd be like helping with emotion regulation. A lot of times we try to suppress our emotions just to sort of feel normal in a way. But that isn't the way to sort of work through loss in general. You can at some points, but sometimes we just use it as just like the way. And sometimes that brings back up that pain, which as much as it hurts, it is necessary to sort of look at. But there are ways to actually work through the dreams and the triggers and the emotions as you work forward and work through those. So it's not like a helpless kind of thing. And I think that's what I really want to get people to understand is that, like there's a lot that we can do. We're not helpless in the dreams that we do have. So I don't know when you want to talk about that, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's to realize you're not alone. When I looked at a sample of, people who had lost a partner or spouse, around 40% had a negative dream, which would be something like them dying again, or they're acting in a way that was distressing for the person. So you had both.
Yeah, it was intense. Well, and also when I look back at that time in my life, my husband and I were only married almost 2 years. We didn't have kids. And so I was getting things in my regular, I guess you would call it waking life, where people were saying, oh, well, you should just go find somebody else. Oh, well, you didn't really count as a family because it was just two of you. So like my waking life was kind of like that too. Wow. And I maybe through some people's actions or words, like if I was maybe subconsciously digesting those things, I was taking them in, as I was sleeping and then believing them. And so I was like, oh my gosh, here he is in my dream. And it's true. I was not important to him. Because he left, he died, even though it was after a tonsillectomy. Like he didn't decide. Or these people in my normal life. It's true. Scott didn't care about me. Scott cares all about all these other people instead of me, and he's talking to them. There's our friend in the dream that he's talking to, but he didn't like me. So.
I think that's a beautiful connection on how waking life can impact our dreams. And you said like everyone's dream's so unique, and that's why it's hard for me to sort of talk about it in general and how it means for you. But it's really beautiful that you can sort of look at that and see how it could have impact. Also, another thing that it could be is that because of those voices from the outside world downplaying your grief, you're looking for the person who normally provided that support for you in times of distress, and he was probably it. And so in your dream, you're trying to find something that's not there presently also in your waking life. So there's different ways you can look at it. I should go to, a lot of people sometimes take these negative dreams as hauntings because they have a belief that anytime a dream is of the deceased, it's a visitation. And so just carefully, I think, watch for that for anyone who's listening, because there's enough evidence on dream research that we should be having negative dreams. Like, that is what we should be doing based on what we know. And so I would always look at that first. And then after you work through some of the issues or some of the problems maybe that you're working through, and if they still occur, okay, maybe we can go that way. But like, I would always sort of say, like, is there something that, is it reflective of something in the outside world first? Because I know everyone has different beliefs and different cultures have different ideas, but I kind of like that approach best because at least we have some research to know that that's what we would expect.
Can we back up like 17 steps?
I mean, I'm having fun.
I know, I'm glad, Mel, but maybe we need to know why Joshua, you like to go by Joshua, right?
Joshua's good,
Okay.
yeah.
We need to know why Joshua even knows any of this stuff. So,
Do you really?
I think we might be interested to know. So, I'm very curious because most people aren't interested in grief unless grief has touched them in some way. So, I'm interested to know, number one, what you're a doctor of, and number two, how you came to be interested in grief dreams. That's like a very specific and kind of, niche thing. So will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so first, my PhDs and my master's is in psychology. And so I never said, like, it's such a niche thing. I never really, when I went to school, I never wanted to actually do this. I actually was in my undergrad to become an elementary school teacher. And near my final year, my father died. And it was the first significant loss I had. And it completely broke me to a point where I was just crying. I really couldn't process the emotions. And I decided, I don't know if I decided, but I wanted the pain to stop. And the pain did stop. And the tears stopped. But what happened was also the life and color of the world ceased to exist. So I like to say I was living in this black and white world after the funeral, where I was able to go to school, do work, but I couldn't feel really much at all, if anything. And I just thought this was grief. That's what happens. And then I had this dream 3 months later, where I was basically in my room and I see my father, and he's looking good and healthy, and which is weird for me because he had such a heaviness to him in waking life. He dealt with a lot of addictions and he had, emotional control issues. And so for me to see that, it was beautiful. And then I walked up to him and I said, I'm going to miss you, acknowledging his death. And I said that I loved him. We hugged and I woke up. But when I woke up, everything changed. I felt different. I felt the joy in my life. I felt also the sadness was there. Like, he regulated my emotions. And I just remember sitting at the edge of my bed thinking, what was that? Because it wasn't I interpreted the dream and that changed how I felt. It was the dream itself changed me. And I couldn't understand because it was 3 months of the same thing. And then this one dream, like, why did it take so long? Like, what's going on? But I just sit in the mystery of that. And I didn't tell anyone. I just went through, finished school. And then when I went to go in to do the elementary school teaching stuff.
You realized you hated children.
No, I realized it didn't feel right. Like, something changed in me. I think I don't know if my dad was really pressuring my whole life to be a teacher because they have good pensions. I don't know, but it could have been for him. And so when he died, I didn't have that pressure anymore. I don't know, or just maybe there's something else out there for me that was calling me. Like, I just sort of know what it felt like, and I said no, and I didn't have a plan B. And so I volunteered with the bereaved at the different hospices near me. And what was interesting is they had these questions about these dreams, like, why haven't I had one? Because it was very upsetting to them that they haven't had a dream, or why am I having these negative dreams? What does this dream mean? And when I looked at the research that was currently done, there wasn't anything I could give them to provide them answers. And I felt bad to be in that situation. And so I had a moment of thought, because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life at that point. I was just, trying to help people. I said, like, could I research this? And after gaining enough courage to say yes, and then because I wasn't trying to be a researcher, I know that learning curve was going to be steep. I said, like, I'll try and I'll see how far I can get. And lo and behold, I had two supervisors, one in my master's and PhD, that were willing to research the topic or allow me to research the topic, which people need to know. You're supposed to research the topic that your supervisor knows a lot about. And no one knew anything about this topic. So it was really special that those individuals really allowed me to explore something that was, I think, talked about in pop culture a lot, but no one really has explored academically. And so I was able to do that, and here I am.
I have a question about that because I know that some researchers that are in the near-death world, they came across kind of this line they had to cross where, am I going to be taken seriously in the research world? Like, is that something that you were nervous about approaching? Because I mean, it's not near death, but dreams are something that's like you can't touch them.
Well, I think people have research dreams. So like at the end of the day, I don't think that was the issue. I think that it was ignored for a reason. I think that there's so many people's biases that cloud what is actually going on in these dreams, or what these dreams can be for people, that I think a lot of people stayed away from them because of that spiritual aspect to a lot of these dreams. And it was, for me, how can I ask questions that's not going to offend anyone, really? And how can I talk about it in a way that people who are atheists and people who are spiritual will both get something out of it? And I think that it just needed, the right person to look at the topic.
So how did you go about doing your research?
Well, like with anything, you you collect some data. And so with that, a lot of it has been online or virtually, to be able to collect that. And so that is the beauty of where we are now. In a different time or a different way, I probably would collect it. Well, it's funny. I'll just slow down. I would have collected it in person from like a student sample, but in my master's, my supervisor didn't think that students had suffered a death. And so because of that, we went outside. And then only now do I realize it's not true. A lot of students have suffered many losses, many deaths, from pets to miscarriages to friends and family. And so it was just an oversight on that part. But moving in my PhD, I collected it online, and it was quicker to be able to get the numbers I needed to get the sample size needed to understand what's going on.
Well, do you ask them questions like yes or no, or is it like, how do you sample them?
Yes, so you ask them a lot of questions. So some of them are quantitative in the sense of their scales and yes or no's and stuff like that. Other times it's more qualitative, where we're asking about the dream itself, or how it made them feel, or why it was memorable to them. So there's different sort of ways to approach it. And I've done a little bit of everything. So depending on which study and which thing we talk about, that would change. But overall, you're just trying to get a good idea. And it's really based on the question you're asking. So some questions will need it to be more quantitative in nature, like what factors predict dreaming of the deceased. Other times to know maybe like how a dream is, or how dream content relates to certain factors, well, you need to collect that dream itself. So yeah, it changes based on the question.
You're collecting dreams? He is like a dream catcher, guys, in the flesh. Did you try and sample people with multiple different types of losses? You mentioned pet loss, miscarriage, we're talking about partner loss here, parental loss, child loss. Did you try and get any type of loss that was available?
In my master's, I did. Yeah, it was just really anyone. And then that had suffered a death that could do it. And then after that, it was because of times have changed and ways to be able to collect data changed a little bit. I was able to then specify more which people I collected from, what types of loss. And so for that, it was partner loss and also pet loss, and then prenatal loss, so mostly miscarriage. And I really want to explore those two just because they're so disenfranchised. And I always feel so much sadness for how people respond to those types of losses. And I really wanted to showcase how similar grief is and how different it is amongst different types of loss. So that's how I went about there. But yeah, like at the end of the day, in the future, I'm definitely going to have to sample every type of loss because they're all different and they have different themes. And you learn a lot about their relationships and what the relationship is with that person or pet. And that's beautiful. And also how love can come through.
So what are the similarities and what are the differences?
So the biggest similarity is that these dreams actually function very similarly across different types of loss. And so we talked about sort of those negative dreams that are around 40% for spousal loss. When it comes down to like pet loss, it's actually a little less, and then creeps up a bit more for prenatal loss. But what's interesting is we would expect those negative kind of dreams. But what's different for all of these is that you're having more comforting dreams. So in those different samples, which goes against typical dream research, which is, I think, one of the more intriguing parts of all of this, is that it's something that I didn't expect going in. Even though I had my own comforting dream, I didn't really expect that based on sort of past research. So that's saying something, that these dreams where the deceased is actually in the image are functioning differently. And so what's going on there? And so you can look at it as emotion regulation. Those really positive, comforting dreams can really help people out of the deep grief in many ways. Also, these continuing bond experiences that people have. So to be able to feel connected, if you're spiritual or not, it doesn't really matter. Like, just to be able to feel connected, or to relive a memory, or to sort of just find or feel that love again. And a lot of these dreams that have been so powerful amongst all of them is about the love. And a lot of people talk about how in these dreams, there's this peace or love that's so different than they've ever felt before. And it's so refreshing. And I think there's a key to that, in the sense of why these are so special, and how they, I think, really impact the bereaved in more ways than we really know. And a lot of times we talk about people being resilient, but we don't really talk about the different ways and why. And one of them could be that they have some of these dreams that really help them through some of the darkest times. And I know I've talked to, thousands of people, and you really see that, and how people really utilize these as a way of coping or getting answers, because people die in all sorts of ways. And a lot of times we kind of want answers to that, or to, we have questions ourselves, and we get those answers through the dream. Or a lot of times it's just to remember that we're still loved. And I think that's a hard part, when the person, especially, so like would have been a widow's podcast, the person who's loves you probably the most, or in that special way, is now gone. How do we see ourselves in the mirror? And a lot of times, I know for me anyways, and for people I've talked to, a lot of times when someone dies, that person who gave us the confidence to see ourselves as beautiful, or see the world as hopeful, is now dead. So how are we going to see the world now? Because a person that gave us the encouragement, or provided the key to loving the world or loving ourselves, is now gone. And now we're left to our own devices. And that's a difficult place to be in, because not only are you dealing with the grief, but you're dealing with this new identity, and how do you sort of build yourself up? So these dreams can really remind us of that. And I think that's why I love this topic the most, is because there's so much wisdom in these dreams on what the deceased says. And so these dreams tend to be shorter. Doesn't matter where they are. They tend to be shorter. And when they talk, they tend to be really quick, like, T-shirt kind of like, sayings that just like allow people to just like find an answer, find a way through that was so difficult prior. So yeah, I don't know how much you want to talk about, but then when you look at the different kinds of themes in the different types of losses, and you see different things, and that's based on where people are. So let's say, since this is a Widows podcast, one of the things is, if you're not married yet, and you're planning to get married, sometimes there'll be that marriage that you never had. So the thing that you were longing for, sometimes it'll be about, there's a couple of people, I think on my podcast, even they had rings on, or the person provided them a ring, and then they found that ring in waking life. So it was kind of interesting connection of feeling that bond. Other times it's going on trips. When it comes to love, sometimes it is about the sexual stuff that you don't see in any other dreams. So it's called like sexual encounter dreams that you have. And then, on top of that, you sort of have these dreams later on in life, when you're maybe starting a new relationship. Sometimes the deceased comes and approves of that new partnership, or the marriage. I've seen that, which is very beautiful for people, because they probably wonder, and to have that would be such a relief. And then if you have children, parenting advice, it could be, because there's so many things that just go on. So like on top of all of that, so really any challenge you have, if it was the person died by suicide, it could be just answering the why questions and stuff like that. And the other thing too is like just processing any of the other feelings that, partner loss brings about, you'll get those types of answers, which is different from other types of loss. Yep.
What about if people don't really have dreams at all about their person, or even just dreams? Does that mean anything nefarious with their grief?
Nefarious. Like they're mad at them?
Or their brain's broken, or they should be having dreams. So, because I know some people really worry if they are not having dreams.
Or they want them. They're like, please, why doesn't my person visit me? I've had people tell me that my husband has visited them in their dreams. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, no, don't visit them. Come, like, I want to have a dream about you, not them. They're just, whatever.
Yeah, the neighbor gets the dream.
Well, I think this is the interesting aspect of this topic, and that's why I went and did some of the research. And so I looked at what factors actually predict dreaming of the deceased. And what was found was, in multiple studies, was that dream recall was the most important factor. And we looked at grief, we looked at different types of personality, like openness to experience or like attachment. We looked at gender, or even spirituality. And what it is seeming to be, it's just how often do you remember your dreams actually plays a huge and the most important role. And so what it's telling me is that it's about catching the dreams more than anything. And so it's not like you're not having the dreams. It's just the mind's ability to remember the dream that it's probably already having. And so when you start asking people, like, if they've had those dreams, like how often they do remember dreaming, a lot of times they'll say not very often. And then with that comes an understanding and just like connecting two dots that, well, then it's going to be probably harder for you to remember one of those types of dreams if you did have it. But we're dreaming throughout the night. I don't know if there's any recorded person who just hasn't, never dreams. And so like we're dreaming in REM and non-REM. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and to be able to catch a 30-second clip, it can be very difficult at times. And so other times people may be having maybe more negative dreams and the mind just doesn't want to remember it for whatever reason. And so there's different reasons. I think because we can't see the dreams people are having, it's difficult to know the exact reason why one person may be over another. But that gives us some insight for those people who maybe just don't remember the dreams that often. But there are ways to increase and decrease your recall frequency.
Really?
It's true.
Tell
yes.
us.
A lot of times, tell us the way.
I actually love dreams. Now that I'm kind of out of my stress dream period, I have such fun dreams, and I'm like, please give me more dreams, and I would love to remember them more. So tell us everything.
Well, wow, okay. Well, the biggest thing is to just value dreams. So by talking about it, by writing down your dreams, talking to others about dreams, actually has been shown through research to increase your frequency. And, that's interesting in itself because our culture, Western culture anyways, it's really bad at showing the importance of dreams in general. And a lot of people also will, even if they don't understand dreams, they can put a negative spin on the dreams itself. I know as a kid, my parents would tell me my nightmares came from the devil. So it was just one of those things that you just, okay, well, if that comes from the devil, maybe everything comes from, so you just don't value them in that way. If anything, you're afraid of them rather than trying to understand them. And so I think that's the biggest thing. So really, if someone wants to improve it, write them down. And, from there, you'll see them increase. I know I have about 3 dreams a week. The average is about around 2 dreams a week. And then I started writing them down, and I started having within a couple months 3 to 4 dreams a night. And so I had to settle down and only write down the more important ones because it was waking me up way too much. And I kind of like my sleep. It's doing a lot.
So you were waking up to write them down right then?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
You're valuing them, right?
Okay.
You got to value them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because actually Mel and I will wake up in the morning every once in a while and be like, I had the wildest dream. And they're always like bizarre, weird,
so
don't
fun,
make any sense. But we have the most fun. And then I did this and then I did that. And then this person showed up. So I've never woken up in the middle of the night. But sometimes while I'm asleep, I'll say to myself, you need to remember this dream. And then it's weird how you'll be going through your day and you won't remember. And then something will happen. You're like, oh, yeah. Remember that? Yeah. I think it's fun.
Yeah, well, we're dreaming in a different conscious state than we are in waking life. So it's just really trying to recall that memory or that event, and it's very difficult. That's why it's so, by writing it down right away, you're not going to forget about it and you can actually think about it. But as you said, a lot of times we wake up and we forget the dream. Even though it was really good, we can still forget about it. And then maybe something can trigger it, but a lot of times you don't really get that trigger. And you're like, where did it go? It was such a great, I wanted to tell everyone. But yeah, it's really, that's why writing it down is so important.
So it's safe. Is it safe to say that everybody is dreaming about their partner at some point in time? We just don't know it's happening because we can't remember it.
That's what I would think, just based on the studies and based on my understanding. It's just there's something going on, but so it is a memory issue. But it could be people are having more negative dreams, and the ones that people are remembering are just more positive and more comforting, which is interesting in itself because what the mind remembers is its own interesting, and when it remembers these dreams, it's very interesting. Maybe it is a production issue or whatever. So maybe people aren't, but we don't really know that per se until we be able to actually look at all the dreams people are actually having. And probably in 10 years, it'll probably be like Elon Musk or something will develop some type of way
VR,
to
yeah.
VR, yeah, or like a library where it just records what you're thinking while you're
crazy.
What's going on. But yeah, so that would be my theory, is that we're dreaming of them more than we're remembering them.
Do you get into the topic of lucid dreaming with this?
Not too much. Like some people do who are good lucid dreamers, which is, people who are able to control their dream or know that they're dreaming while they're dreaming. And then a lot of times if you're good, you can start bringing in characters and control what happens. Some people will say that when they are lucid dreaming, they'll bring in the deceased character to be able to talk to. But for the most part, a lot of times it's not a big thing that is a part of the research. Some people will say in the dream they know it's a dream, but it's not like they can control anything. They just know that they're dreaming because the deceased is dead. But a lot of times it doesn't even matter. It's just that moment in time that's meaningful.
Is there a way to influence our dreams? I mean, can you plant seeds while you're awake? Are there ways to... Do you know what I'm saying? Like if you think about a thing a lot, does it influence what you dream about?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's just really understanding that. And a lot of times our thoughts before bed have the higher influence in what comes through. So if you're...
So that's why I'm dreaming about tacos so much.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times too at night is a lot of people have told me that that's one of the hardest times for widows, is because the routine is changed. And that's when most of the time we get to spend time with the person, where a lot of time we're at work and busy. And so that is the most difficult part. And that's so you're really feeling your grief. You could feel the grief the most is because of that. And I'm guessing 2 in.the morning because they're also not there. And so, yeah, there is a thing called dream incubation. And what it's been shown in research to be able to do is help people answer questions that they have or even dream of certain type of scenarios. And it's just about really thinking about it prior to bed and keeping that in your consciousness as you fall asleep. So you're basically telling your mind that I want to dream like this. I want to remember it when it happens or when the answer comes. And so for this, I would say that I haven't done the research yet, but there is something I want to do, is that you probably could have an influence on remembering these dreams by making a dream that you'd want to have. And so I have a sheet on my website. It's called the Dream Builder Worksheet. And there's a couple uses for that, but one of them can be to be able to sit down and just really think about what dream would you want to have tonight if you could, because that's going to bring up a lot that maybe you don't even know, and that has its own emotional benefits, I believe, to that. And then just think about that before bed. And you may not get some of the people who have done it didn't get the dream that they wrote down, but they remembered a dream of that person. And so that could help for some people. I know some people said they pray and then they get a dream afterwards. It was a very similar kind of thing in the sense of wanting it, but at the end of the day, it's not going to work for everyone. There's certain things that said, like timing is a mysterious thing to me on when these dreams happen, because they can come at just the perfect time for someone.
Have you read the book, The BFG?
Roald Dahl?
No. Was there a movie based on that?
Yeah.
Yes, it's like the greatest movie of all time. or not movie, the greatest book of all time, but the BFG, he makes dreams for people and he like incubates them in his little cave, and then he goes and he blows them into their window through like a big horn. And so you are like the BFG. You're big,
I don't know if I'm there yet.
big friendly giant. I looked at the Dream Builder worksheet on your website, and I thought it was really interesting because you ask people to put a lot of detail in there. It's not just like, I want to dream about my husband tonight, and I want him to talk to me, and I want him, to him to say, I love you, and you're doing a great job. It's like, what are they wearing? What smells do you smell? Is there sounds going on? Music, things like that. And then what do you want them to say? And then it's like, and then list out the dream. It's very detailed. It's not just a... Yeah. Very whatever.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I did that, because when people didn't have a dream and I would ask them, what dream would you want? They didn't know. And if they did have, they said, oh, any dream, or I'll just a positive dream. I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm like, let's write it down. Let's see. And what's great about that is you can sort of really feel something different. Something comes out when you write down exactly what you're longing for and what you hope for, and you're building it through your memories, which is really beautiful. So what are they wearing? Well, you're going to be thinking about what are some special outfits that they wear if they're on the beach, but would you think that they would be wearing, or what do you want to, what is their hairstyle, like all that sort of stuff that makes them, like their identity will go into the dream and your memories of them. And I think that's very powerful to really sitting with what dream you'd want to have. And so I think it's just a more effective way, but it's also a great tool to be able to just sit with the emotions that come out. Like a lot of times no one asks about the dreams people have, and no one really looks at this subject. So just by asking someone what dream they want to have, it's amazing what kind of information comes out of someone that you can just further a conversation with. Because it's like, say, you could do the dream builder, Mel could do the dream builder, and you can have a whole episode just talking about the symbols and what you felt, and also like different memories based on the imageries and stuff. So it's just a very beautiful tool that, I didn't really think about going in, but that's how it turned into. But hopefully people can utilize that to give them some hope. But it's also understanding that if you do start increasing your recall, you may be having more nightmares that maybe the deceased isn't a part of, but you may just be having more nightmares in general. And just getting an understanding of those dreams can really help people not be afraid of them. Because one of the issues I do hear a lot is that people do have these negative dreams and then they restrict their sleep. And when you restrict your sleep, you're going to have a harder time with your grief journey. And as you probably already know, sleep is so important for basically any kind of function, just being a human. and so it just kills your immune system, it kills your health. You can't think straight. Like a lot of people say grief brain, but is it really just you're not sleeping right? Like it's one of those things that it's hard to sort of pull those two apart, because sleep is so important for just everything. And then your mood and problem solving, which is what grief I think really is about, is like something's devastating happened. How do I move forward?
So how did you thread the needle between people who take dreams as prophecies or visitations or, something that's very spiritual, and people who are very much on the end of it's just your brain figuring out what your brain needs to figure out? How do you thread the needle there? Because it's like we don't really know either. No, we don't. And a lot of times it doesn't really matter. It matters to the dreamer. And so how do you provide a safe space? Well, you listen to how the dreamer sees that dream. And if they're looking for guidance on something, well, you can help them out, especially if it's a negative dream, maybe provide different perspectives based on the literature. But other than that, it's just sitting with how they see it and really engaging and listening without trying to put your own bias on it. Where a lot of people, they have their own intent. They have their own bias on how they see it, and then they want other people to see it that way. I personally don't care how you see the dream, that it's different from me. Like I understand that everyone is unique and everyone's going to have a certain perspective. My job is to just provide a safe space and to talk about the topic in that way. And so I could talk about, say, a beautiful dream that someone has, and some person say, oh, that's the mind concocted that dream to make the person feel better. Great. Did it work? Yeah, cool. What did it feel like in that dream, in that moment? And a lot of times an atheist would have that dream and feel better and just be able to be in the mystery of that moment. It's like looking at art in a way, like that happened. And I always sort of like to sort of talk in a way that one of the things after someone dies is that
we think we'll never see them again. But in that moment, we're seeing them again. And how truly magical that is. It doesn't matter what you believe. You're in a moment with that love and that person. When you wake up a lot of times, then you know it's a dream. But in that dream, you usually don't. And then if someone's spiritual, great. How does that help you in your belief structure? How does that what do those symbols represent to you? And sometimes a beautiful dream to one person that's spiritual is a very positive, comforting. Another time it's very horrifying, because certain beliefs and cultures can see these dreams as negative if you believe in reincarnation. And if you have a dream, it means that they're not reincarnated, and that's very devastating for the dreamer. And then so there's a lot of things that can go on. So, I really just allow the dreamer to sort of ask the questions and share their beliefs, and really just not try to put anything on it. So as you see when I'm talking about it all in the different ways. So it's not really I want someone to believe in an afterlife, or I am an atheist. I just want people to understand that this is a human experience that people actually have doesn't matter if you're spiritual or not. This is a human experience, and that's how people take it seriously. And then if it provides more mystery and more wonder about the world, that's great, cool. I think we should be in more wonder, because we don't know a lot about being human. I think we're still learning about that and the functions of the mind.
He's just here for the dreams, man. He's just here for the dreams.
I'm just here for the mystery. I'll sit in that mystery all day, and that doesn't bother me, because I don't really know. And I think that's a beautiful part of being where I am, because I've heard some amazing stories throughout this that it just makes you sit. And, I don't need to sort of say it proves this or that. It just makes me sit in the mystery, and that allows me to sort of just, keep my mind open to what life can be.
I think that's so important, to have that safe space for somebody, no matter what their background or their beliefs are, because like you said, their brain is presenting them with this dream, and it could be taken multiple ways by multiple people depending on their background or what's going on in their daily life. So you mentioned that you have a podcast as well. Is this true?
It is true. So one of the issues I had with research is you don't get the research I was doing was I didn't get to sort of hear about the symbols of these dreams and how these dreams, what they meant for people, and how they utilized them as they move forward in their grief. And so I developed a podcast called the Grief Dreams Podcast to really get to know people a little bit more, and then see how these dreams really thread into their grief journey. And a lot of times it's amazing how they are part of what they do. And it's usually sometimes the first time they share the actual dream. And even though it's so meaningful, they haven't shared it. And I think that's surprising to me. And I think that's sort of the issue that we have when it comes to this topic, is that no one really understands if it was common or not. No one really gave it any kind of airtime. And a lot of times people didn't want other people to change their meaning. And so really, I'm just listening to people's dreams and, chiming in if it's like they have a question of some sort. Like one widow came on the podcast and her husband died. And then soon after, she moved to a new home. And so she had this dream where the individual was roaming around the old house, like lost and confused kind of thing. And then so she thought it was the soul is basically didn't know that she moved. Right? That was someone told her that. And I looked at that and I said, no, it's probably something different than that, because I've seen other people move and then they still have a comforting dream where the deceased says, "Oh, I know you moved," blah blah. So that doesn't match up when you look at other types of scenarios. I said, "Oh, maybe it was just there's something about moving and how important that house was. It's like that person is missing in some way from you." And she talked about how hard it was to move so soon after the loss and stuff like that. And you realize it was just her trying to process separation from the house, because the house was such an important part of their relationship. Some people keep clothes. Well, some people will keep that house till the end because it's just a symbol of something more. And to have to sell it, very soon, because she had to take care of her parents, I believe it was, how devastating that was. And if I was someone talking to her, it would be let's process that, because it may not be getting enough airtime in your waking life. And it wasn't, as she was sort of admitted, it really wasn't, because she was so focused on caregiving after that and the move. And so it's just really a lot of times when we look at these dreams, it's what's actually not being processed, or what we're avoiding, because that would be such a significant loss for me if that happened. And we have to sit with that. even though it needed to be done, we still got to sit with the emotions of what's being done.
That's super, super interesting. I listened to a couple of your podcasts when I have been running in the last couple of days, and it's interesting to hear other people's stories and then to hear their dreams and just how everybody's a little bit different and the things that are important to their brain for some reason. And, I've had similar experiences to Mel where when I've had dreams of Jason, sometimes I know he's dead. Sometimes I don't know he's dead. The one that stood out the most was that we were at a family function and he wouldn't talk to me. And then he was like, "Why won't you talk to me?" And in that moment, I was like, "I would like to talk to you. You're dead. I miss talking to you." I was able to kind of figure out that that's why he wouldn't talk to me, because we couldn't talk and I would like to talk. So, and it was neither good nor bad. It was just, confusing or neutral. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if it's a question. Here's a thing I'm going to tell you, and then maybe you can make sense of it. So, like I mentioned to you, my dad died a few months ago. It was sudden and tragic, just like my husband's death was. My husband's death was 4.5 years ago. And what I noticed, which made it so I was less alarmed, is it seemed to me like I had almost the exact same timeline of occurrences of stressful dreams. So like maybe 2 weeks after my dad died, I would start to have these like horrible dreams of just like not anything having to do with my dad, but just stress dreams. Like I was running or trying to escape from something, and it would be every single night. And it lasted for about a month and a half. And I remember back to when my husband died, and the dreams, those did include my husband, but they were also interspersed with regular stress dreams too. But the amount of time was very similar to how much stress was in the dreams and for how long. Is that just like, I took it as, oh, well, my individual brain processes sudden death and shock in kind of the same amount of time. Like it looked like a pattern to me. Do you have anything you can say to that? I don't even know.
Is that normal? Is
that
there
a
a
thing?
pattern? Yeah.
Is there a thing? Well, I think we have to do more research to know exactly what the pattern would be, but that's what I would expect, because especially in those early months, you're trying to understand the reality of that and process some of the pain. And it can say, like, I wouldn't doubt it would last even longer for more people, just because of the challenges. But things are working out, and it's interesting. So like what dreams we remember, because like maybe you're still having negative dreams, but maybe it's not as important to process them or remember them in that way. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's just common and normal as you sort of work through the grieving process.
Like when I would wake up from the stress dreams after my dad died, I remember waking up every day and I was like, okay, good. That was not real. Now I can kind of like slough that off and go about my day. But when my husband died, I was like, it's real. Everything's wrong and everybody hates me and I didn't matter and this and that. And so it did help me to have that kind of connection to be like, no, it's okay. Your brain is just shuffling and trying to make sense of stuff. And oh my gosh, dreams can just like kind of make or break your whole day, when you're going.
They can. I think, when people don't have proper information on dreams and how to process them, it can complicate the journey so much. And so like even having a negative dream, doesn't matter if the deceased in it or not, can be very distressing. And if you don't process it in a certain way, well, then you could be afraid going to bed, but you could just carry that through your rest of the day and just sort of can ruin what would be. And so there's actually a really quick way to help people. There's two ways I like to sort of say that you can look at negative dreams. One is just by understanding dreams a little bit more and understanding your own symbols and working with your dreams more, you can actually see how maybe what the negative dream is trying to tell you, which then you can work on that, and then you wouldn't need those negative dreams anymore because you're working on it. So the brain would be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so I get the message. Other times, a lot of times it can take a long time to work through some of those issues or problems. And so another way you can do it is called dream rescripting. So when you get up in the morning or from that dream, you change it to something more positive. So a lot of times you change the ending, so it's more of a positive ending, or you can sort of bring a character in and change how the dream would have played out if they were in the dream. And then what research has shown is actually it decreases the distress from the dream, but also can reduce even having those dreams again, which is kind of cool. And research has shown that if you work on your dreams in trauma, your trauma then changes. So trauma affects your dreams, but how you process your dreams actually affects your trauma. And so it's a two-way street. So there's a lot that, like just people just don't know. And I say like our culture is so poor at understanding these dreams and how to find insight into them and how to use discernment when looking at these dreams. Because a lot of people will just go online and type in whatever, and then they'll just trust that. But like everyone's symbols are different. So as much as like I can see patterns, everyone's experiences and symbols is totally different within someone's dream. And it takes that person really looking through it and trying to understand it, to understand their own dream language.
Oh, that's so interesting that that it's not like there's a universal, if the dog is licking the cow's ears, that means that you have experienced a loss. That could mean anything for every person.
Yeah, see, like I may have a different version of what a dog means to me, right? Or I've seen that on something else, or maybe my dad has a t-shirt like that. So it could reflect very different ways. Different cultures can have these dream symbols. And so if they're trained in that, it could represent that. But a lot of times we're not trained in symbols, so it really wouldn't affect us. But the issue is when we do look at a dream dictionary, let's say, and it's a dog licking a cow's ear. Is that what it was? Okay, yeah.
Duh.
I don't know if that's in there, but they'll have like a dog and they'll have a cow's ear, and like they'll try to combine something. What's interesting is that our dreams will change based on who's quote unquote kind of interpreting the dream. And so what was if someone went to, there's two psychologists back in the day, like Freud and Jung. And so if you took a dream to Freud and you talk to him, your dreams will start changing in a way that he could understand them and vice versa. And so it's interesting how our dreams will play with the people that we're talking to try to get them to say what the truth is in a way. And so the issue is when you look at a dream dictionary is now as you move forward, is your dream based on your symbol? Is it that symbol? Because now that's in part of your consciousness. It makes it actually more complicated to actually know what's going on. And so, yeah, it's really just to understand yourself. And I think the more you understand who you are, the easier it is to interpret your dreams. That's what I found personally as I sort of move forward.
That is so interesting and also annoying. Why can't we just have things that are easy and don't take any work?
Well, one thing that's interesting is that, these dreams these tend to be a lot more, I think, easier for people maybe to understand because it has something to do with your grief. And usually it can be very straightforward in some ways. So I'll give you an example of a widow's dream. And so she kept having these nightmares of her deceased husband coming back in the dream, and she thought it was a haunting. And she wanted him to stop. Anyway, so the dream basically has him coming back, knocking on the door, and she opens it and she asks him, where he has been and why he let me think he was dead all this time. And then she gets angrier and angrier as he tells her that he faked his death, and then it was all just a plan to get this money from the business and insurance, and also that he wants to resume a relationship with her again. And then she tells him that she's moved on, she's with someone new, she's happy, and then he's like, well, if you're not going to be back with me, then at least give me back the money. And then, from there it goes, and she says, how could you be such a mean, heartless person to do something like this to me? To make me think that you're dead and all you want is the money. And then he becomes menacing and starts chasing her. So this is sort of this dream that she kept having. And when you look at dreams, it's really great to look at the emotions and some of the themes in the dreams to then connect with your waking life. And so there are two big themes here that you could probably see. The one is this new relationship in the sense that he wants to be back, but she can't be back because she's happy in a new relationship. So it really, I think, goes to show on how difficult it probably is to be in a new relationship and to love two people at the same time. It's not something our culture wants or allows, or I don't know, approves of in many ways. So this is really our first time loving one and loving another. And then also being in a new relationship can be very difficult based on what the other person expects of us within our own grief journey. Sometimes they don't want the pictures around. Sometimes they want you to sort of change the way you grieve because they want to be important. So it can be very difficult and hard for us. That's one of them. And the other one is this money. And when you ask her about the money, she says that's probably the hardest thing that she's had to deal with since his death because it was so unjust that she's the one that gets to have it all, even though he's the one that works so hard for it. And so she was still having a hard time processing it. And so you can sort of see the two things that have one would go to, let's say, counseling or talk to someone about, those would be the two issues that the mind's trying to get you to understand, to then talk about, to relieve some of that pain that you're carrying. And a lot of times we carry pain without even knowing it and then it comes out sideways a lot of times. And so this allows someone to actually say, wait a second, are these issues for me? And the answer is yes. Well, then let's talk about it, because there's something that it's holding back. And a lot of times it's holding back our hearts opening up again and loving. And so by really sort of working on this, people can then, I would say, have more positive dreams. And I think something we didn't talk about when it comes to the data is that around 90% plus are having would have one of these positive dreams, even though 40% will have negative dreams. What's interesting is people who have negative dreams tend to have positive dreams also. And so what I'm thinking is going on is people have these negative dreams in the beginning, but as they work through some of the pain, and they sort of digest some of the loss in a way, that then these positive dreams can kind of help form. We still need to do some longitudinal research on that, but it's very surprising that people who are still having negative dreams are still able to have these positive dreams. So these positive dreams tend to have like a pull, like that's sort of the main purpose of, there's something special here, something that is supposed to, I think, help us, that a lot of negative dreams may not be able to do in that way. And as I said, like it really just builds a bond and really produces a lot of love in people. And that's what a lot of the positive dreams really bring out is love.
Do you do grief dream type therapy, or do you do classic therapy and incorporate dreams into it in your day-to-day life?
Well, I always talk to people, because a lot of times it's pretty straightforward. When I talk to people, it's pretty straightforward on what some of the dreams represent. Just because when you see so much, you start seeing patterns and stuff like that. But sometimes I'll do it on the side. Other times it's about me teaching, because I think that's more important than anything. So I try to teach others how to look at their dreams, because if it's a counselor or a therapist, they have no expertise and no knowledge of this for the most part. And so they're the ones seeing clients. They're the ones that are in the front lines. And so if they can at least provide a safe space and know sort of how to sort of look at these dreams, well, then that's really, really helpful to them. And they're not avoiding the topic anymore. I think because one of the issues is that because there wasn't any research in the area, really, the training of those who provide bereavement therapy or counseling, they're not trained in that. So they avoid the topic. And so someone could be having nightmares, or someone could be having these dreams. And a lot of times if they are mentioned, they hold back and they avoid the topic because they're uncomfortable with it, because they never had the training. So that's really sort of my push. But I always open and talking to people about their dreams whenever possible, just because it's interesting for me to also see how dreams reflect waking life. And that's sort of like the podcast. I'm always interested, because there's no dream that's truly alike. Like they're always a little bit different. And how frequent that these dreams are is also very beautiful. Like the one thing we didn't mention is that I said they're common, but they're really common. Like after spousal loss, was like 86% of people within the first 2 years had at least one dream of the deceased, which is almost everyone. And 10% of the population just doesn't really remember their dreams. So most people who dream at some point will have or remember a dream of the deceased, which is, I think, very comforting to some people who really want one and haven't had one yet.
I wanted mine to stop because mine were so like dramatic, but when
I think it was just, and I think it wasn't that you wanted to stop. I think it was just you wanted a way to understand it,
dream, not that.
Yeah, and then a good dream could happen, right? Like, but at that moment, you just didn't understand it, and a lot of times that because of the way you're interpreting the dream, it caused you more distress than you seeing it almost as a learning tool, or to be able to understand what was actually going on, to be able to then conquer that, to feel empowered. It was almost taking power away from you, which is, I would want that to stop too, but there's always a way to sort of gain your power back.
Yeah. I remember when I finally had a dream and my husband was in there, and it was not a reburial sort of a situation or him like ignoring me. I was like, thank you so much. And then it was like I could like have that all stop and move on. And I haven't had really many since then. And I'm okay with that, I think.
Well, what's crazy about these dreams is that they don't stop. And even as you process your loss and you continue to process your loss, they'll come in moments that are very meaningful a lot of times to people, and even at end of life. So in the pandemic, I've heard a lot of people have dreams that help them make it through, either reduce the loneliness or help them with words of wisdom. and the loss was 20, 30 years ago. And then what's interesting, at end of life, these dreams also happen. They come up again to help people with the transition from life to death. And so what's really cool is that a lot of other dreams one would have, those symbols tend to sort of, or those moments, let's say it's a boss or whatever, you don't really dream of them as you move forward, but these tend to sort of keep coming in times that are, a lot of times it's a struggle, that these dreams will tend to come in to sort of help the person through. And that's different than other dreams as someone has. And so there is this other, I would say, function or other mystery there on why that continues to be the symbol or the way of helping the person through. I don't know, but it's interesting to see that pattern.
So, Joshua, do you have, besides the podcast, which is called Grief Dreams, and you can find it on all the places that have podcasts, do you have other resources to help people be able to process their dreams or figure out what their dreams mean? Or do the dream, what did you call it? Dream incubation, or be able to remember their dreams better? Do you have a way for people to improve their dream knowledge?
Well, I think this podcast will be such a great improvement from what they had prior. So that's going to give them a lot. And then if you just go on the griefdreams.ca website, there's so much information on there. I put a lot on there. So there's some that I could only put on, or I have to make a book to really teach someone or have like a private conversation with, to actually really provide them that kind of knowledge. But at the end of the day, I think that's a start. And to understand, if people have questions, they can also just email me. That's okay.
Excellent. Well, this has been amazing. You are fascinating, and I could talk to you for like ever, just because it's like dreams are wild, and dreams are, like you said, they're a mystery. And I think it's cool that you're trying to figure them out, and figure them out in a way that's really meaningful for people who have experienced devastating loss.
Yeah, and with the different belief structures too. And it's just like, how can we provide a safer space for people to talk about their grief? And because dreams is just one thing, I bet you there's a ton of other stuff that the bereaved do or experience that people are uncomfortable talking about. And it's like, how can we just like understand grief in a way where we can then just be able to tell people what's normal and what's not? And this is a subject that a lot of people felt wasn't normal for the most part, or wasn't a thing, but it actually is. It's probably one of the biggest things in the bereavement process that we just didn't really pay attention to. But it's affecting so many people. Like even children. One study was done, and 55% of children had these dreams. So if you're a parent and you have those kids, if you have two kids, at least one of them is going to be dreaming, I would think, of their parent. And what does that look like? And how do they interpret it? Because they're trying to understand death still. And so, there's a lot to learn on the subject, and but it really hits so many people within our culture. And it's like, how can we actually help those people use those dreams as a way to continue to walk, I guess, a straighter line than making them sort of basically fall down. And like grief tends to put us on our ass over and over and over again. And it's like getting back up can be very difficult. So how can we keep ourselves on our feet? And these dreams can really help us be able to do that.
Well, on behalf of the grieving community of widows, we two widows, thank you for what you are doing and what you're researching and the continued questions that you are asking. So thank you so much, because it's a struggle to go through all this stuff. So any sort of answers or like research that has to do with grief, we are really appreciative of, because we've noticed in our journeys that it's just not as typically studied as other things. So thank you so much, and thank you for being our guest today.
Well, I appreciate all the love to bring me on, and to care. It always warms my heart, because it's a topic that's meaningful to me, and it seems to be meaningful to you too also. And so hopefully it helps your guest as we move forward. And I know there's one question or one thing that you did mention is like getting angry at people for having dreams. What I think is really interesting is that sometimes when we don't have the dream that we want, other people's dreams can be utilized as our own. So rather than getting mad at people for having those dreams, just really utilize them and carry them as your own and sort of sit with that. I've seen some very interesting, beautiful things that happen. And I've seen other people who have dreams of the deceased person, and the person tells them to tell that other person as if that they couldn't visit them or whatever, right? And so it's just one of those things is I don't know what's going on, but other people can have dreams for other people. And so rather than judging that and putting like your own fear or anxiety or guilt on that, utilize that and say, oh, well, at least someone's having one. Like, that's great. Like, let's, what can I learn from that dream, and what does that kind of represent for me? And I just want to, like, I know we're closing up, and I just want to sort of close on a positive dream that came in from a widow. And so this is the dream. So my husband came and sat down by my bed and said, I've been to the end of time and back, and you know what? I still love you.
Oh.
I'm going to incubate that dream. That sounds quite nice. If you ever need widows or widowers or partner lost people to like give you dreams, I'm sure we could help you in that arena. So reach out if you need some help with some studies. And you guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. And thank you to Dr. Joshua Black. We have been fascinated. And thank you to the listener who encouraged us to ask him to be on, because this has been a really great episode. If you want to keep the podcast going, check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us tacos, please go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And until we get to talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Joshua.
And we're just two young widows and the real life BFG. He's gonna read the book and see. And we're all just trying to figure out widow.
We
do
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it. If you're on a budget or not, who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.